Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Monday morning, and as promised, I'm finally getting round to tell you about two new foundation additions to my foundation wardrobe. I tend to think that foundation is increasingly important as you get older. Even if you've got relatively good skin, we all kind of need a bit of help in looking less washed out and more even toned as we get older. So I find myself almost automatically spending more money on foundation, and it has to be said, I like to try different ones now. I've kind of got into the phase of life where I have different foundations for different times of year, certainly, or different circumstances. So I'll be inclined to wear something rather different on my skin in the summer, even a British summer, which, to be honest, isn't always that different from a British spring and autumn, if not winter, than I would in cold weather or in more formal situations, for example. So I'm always game to look at new foundations these days, and the prices seem to be going up and up. I bought two new to me foundations just before Christmas, both from Chanel. So interesting to be able to make fairly direct comparisons within the same line. I bought the newly reformulated Sublimage foundation. I have never had the Sublimage foundation before. I believe it came in a pot as a more creamy formulated foundation, and if you've heard me ranting on this channel before about luxury cosmetics being sold in pots open to the air once they've been opened for the first time, you'll know that that would not have been appealing to me. But the reformulated serum foundation from the Sublimage range, which is the most luxurious range from Chanel's skincare, is now in a pump action bottle. And so I decided I wanted to try that, along with the newly reformulated Les Beiges foundation, which is also supposed to be a long wear but hydrating foundation. Now, I've had Les Beiges before and liked it before. The new bottle is slightly different, but not particularly. And I've found the main difference in the new Les Beiges foundation, so far as I can remember, because it's probably at least 6 months, if not, well, no more than that. It would be going back to year before last, end of 2019, when I used up my last bottle of the old formulation of Les Beiges. But as far as I can see, the really big difference is the Les Beiges range now has a much more formidable range of colours, which is all to the good. So it seems to be becoming one of their main foundations, probably taking over from some of the rest of the foundation line. So what do I think? I've been kind of comparing and contrasting the two. You can see from just looking at them that I have very similar colour from each. In the Sublimage, I got B10, and in Les Beiges, I got BR12. So I was picking my colour just online, haven't been able to go into a store in the current circumstances, and both of these work very well with my current complexion. As you can see, they're very, very similar. The Sublimage one is slightly more neutral, as you'd expect from the BR. There's a slightly more pink undertone to the Les Beiges one that I got, which is probably a bit closer to my own complexion, but both of them blend absolutely fine. In terms of the choice of colour range, Les Beiges would have to be the winner there. I think they've got over 30, maybe about 35 different shades in the new Les Beiges range, and they've beefed up considerably the choice of colours at the darker end of the spectrum. You know, you would need to look at a video from a woman of colour really to see if they are covering all bases there. But from my perspective as a Caucasian woman, it looked as if there was a much, much better choice for people who don't have fair skin, which I've always thought was one of the weaknesses with Chanel's range. It was very targeted towards those of Northern European colouring. So Les Beiges winning there. Sublimage has a decent selection, not nearly as good for the women of colour. I think there's about 15, maybe slightly less than that, but a considerably more narrow choice in colour range. Now, in a sense, they might argue that that isn't as important because the Sublimage foundation is a lighter coverage. Neither of them are heavy coverage, to be honest, but Sublimage is supposed to be a lighter weight coverage that's going to blend more into the skin anyway. I don't know if I entirely buy that. Now, on price points, there is certainly, on initial consideration, a big difference. The Sublimage comes in at a whopping £110, although that is for 40 mil. So it's a good amount for your money. And the Les Beiges, I paid £41, and I think that is 30 mil. Yeah, so 10 mil less, which is quite a lot, about a quarter less there for £41, but still a big price differential. I do think you have to throw into the melting pot there that the Sublimage comes with its own foundation brush. This is it, and it is a really good foundation brush. I love this doming there. First of all, it's very soft but dense, which is what I think you need to kind of pack in and blend in your foundation. I much prefer a brush to either fingers or a sponge. I know some people love their sponge application. I do not. I think it soaks up the product, and to me, you have to be much more skilled to get a good, even application with a sponge. I just find it slightly patchy. I would use a blending sponge maybe at the very end of application to kind of take off if I've put too much on, but that's the only time I would use a sponge. Sorry, losing my words there. So I really like a good brush, and this is a good brush. Very nice quality. I'd kind of compare it to my Shiseido long-time favourite, starting to look a bit raggy, that I've had for years, and better quality than the little Les Beiges, not Les Beiges, the water tint foundation from Chanel, which also comes with this brush, which is fine actually for putting on the water tint. It's not a bad brush, but this is a much nicer quality. So I do think that if you were buying a foundation brush, you would be spending about £30 to £40 for a brush of this quality. So if you take that into consideration, that does reduce the price of this foundation down to about £70 for 40 mils, which brings it much nearer to the Les Beiges cost. But cost is a big factor here. The design of the bottles, both really nice quality design. I would say in relation to the Sublimage, again, because you're getting a lot of product, it's a glass bottle, it's heavy, you're not really going to want to travel with this, not that many of us are travelling much, if at all. The other thing is that if, like me, you tend to put your makeup on over the sink in your bathroom and have a porcelain sink, you're going to have to be careful you don't drop this baby, because you're going to have a smashed bottle all over your sink. The Les Beiges is also a glass bottle, so not much difference there. Obviously, it's a bit lighter simply because there's less product and less glass, but it's not particularly travel friendly. I don't know whether I've got a dodgy bottle I took this away with me for one night over Christmas, and this is what happened. Now I thought perhaps I hadn't screwed on the top. I have since then and cleaned this up. So the design of this in terms of stopping it leaking everywhere is not brilliant for some reason that I haven't quite established yet. Particularly if you keep your foundations stored on the side in a drawer. I'm not going to be able to do that with that. I'm going to have to keep it standing upright, I think. So the bottle is a bit of a mess, to be honest. But they both look very nice, high quality. Fragrance might be an issue. It's probably, if fragrance is an issue for you, you're not going to like any Chanel foundations because they're all fragranced. Doesn't really bother me. I quite like the Chanel fragrance and it doesn't persist long. I would say that the Sublimage has a stronger fragrance than the Les Beiges. Les Beiges has, if you've bought any Chanel products, the blushes, for example, smell that kind of slightly rosy. Is it rose? It's a very distinctive Chanel makeup fragrance. The Sublimage, and I don't have any of the Sublimage skincare line, to me smells more like the Gabrielle fragrance, to be honest. It's more floral, if anything, and it persists a bit longer than the Les Beiges, so that might bother some people. How do I feel about the actual foundations? Well, in short, I like both of them. They're both really nice. Shall we have a little squeeze of both? Just to see. Here we go. I'm not going to put a big amount with the Sublimage. Looks a bit yellowy there because of paleness of my skin. It sinks beautifully into the skin. Oh, I can really smell it. It feels extremely light and comfortable. You really don't feel that you've got anything on your skin with this. What I like about it is it doesn't show up in the pores around my nose, which a lot of foundations do. I have to use a primer. I say it doesn't. If I try to build it up very much, it does a little bit, and I'd have to put a bit of primer around the nose, but that's true of most foundations for me. I found it stayed intact, felt comfortable, gave that bit of coverage, but it's not a huge coverage. It's, you know, fairly light. Here's Les Beiges. Golly, that top is a mess. You can see just a bit more rosy, but I mean, given there's a very slight difference in the colour of the two, you can see that the finish is very similar. Both of them actually feel really moisturising. Now, the point of the Sublimage one is that it's supposed to be a treatment as well as a foundation. In other words, over time, you're lightening your skin with various exotic ingredients that they relate on the back of the box. I don't know how true that is. In terms of how they appear on the skin, I find it very difficult to compare. I think if push came to shove, I slightly prefer Les Beiges. It has slightly more luminosity, which is what I like in my foundation on the skin. But, oh, it's so marginal. And again, the feel of them on the skin, I would go slightly with Sublimage on that one. But again, very, very marginal. So the reality is, I think these are two very, very similar foundations. They're both beautiful foundations, I think. They're not heavy, so you're not going to get great coverage. You're going to need your concealer if there are imperfections as well. But you're just going to get a lovely evening of the tone that lasts for a good long day, particularly if you pump up with a bit of powder and a finishing spray. And you're going to get a degree of luminosity, slightly more with the Les Beiges. These are good workhorse foundations, both of them. So really what you choose is down to you because of the huge price differential. Certainly if you don't take into account that foundation brush, because you've already got one and you don't need a new one, then I think you're going to go with Les Beige. You can't really justify as a difference in the effect that's produced for the difference in the price. Although I think, bearing in mind that you get that extra bit of foundation, extra 10 mil actually, it's not a bit, it's quite a lot for the price and the brush, then maybe the price point isn't as outrageous for the Sublimage. So, you know, I'm not sure. I'm glad I've got both of them. I'm going to enjoy wearing both of them. Would I buy both of them again? Well, I've bought Les Beige before, so we know that's going to be on my list. And at the moment, I'm feeling, you know, pretty well disposed to the Sublimage as well. Do bear in mind, I still like that Guerlain one I've talked about. And yeah, I still like that. I'm not going to say in preference to these two. Well, maybe a little bit. But these are two really nice foundations, and I wouldn't dissuade anyone from getting either of these. I think the Chanel foundation range at the moment overall is pretty impressive, to be honest. So those are my thoughts after a few weeks of wearing both of these. I think the only question mark I've got is, am I going to see some great improvement in my skin from wearing the Sublimage? Probably not, because apart from anything else, I'm alternating it with other foundations, but that is supposed to be one of the benefits that we wouldn't see for a little while. So those are my thoughts, as I say, on the foundations. If you've got to the end of this and enjoyed, please give me a thumbs up. That really helps out. I'd love to know if any of you have tried these, particularly the Sublimage one, and what your thoughts are. Until next time, bye for now.